This here is the Proton X70's worst nightmare, the new Chery Tiggo 7 Pro. It is very clear that Chery Malaysia is gunning for Proton's markets here in Malaysia. The Omoda 5 is doing very well against the X50, and the bigger Tiggo 8 Pro is actually very close in terms of sales numbers compared to the Proton X90. Soon, this Tiggo 7 Pro will eat into the X70's market as well, so let's take a quick early look at this new SUV. But first, let's talk about Chery's breakthrough success here in Malaysia. The brand was just relaunched last year and it quickly managed to sell over 1,000 units per month. Now in 2024, that number has gone up to 1,500 units per month. We've also been told that the sales figures are limited by the speed of production at the local assembly plant here in Malaysia and not customer demand. With this all-new model joining the range later this year, Chery Malaysia will likely end the year being a bigger brand in terms of sales numbers compared to Nissan, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz and BMW. But back to the car itself, it is extremely obvious that the Tiggo 7 Pro is aimed squarely at the Proton X70. The length is within a few millimeters of the Proton, and the wheelbase in fact is identical between the two models. Even the price is going to be really close. For now, this has not been launched yet, but Chery Malaysia is saying it's going to be under 130,000 ringgit. And that's exactly where the Proton X70 is priced at right now. We were first told that the Omoda E5 EV was going to be priced under 160,000 ringgit, but then it was launched at below 150. If this Tiggo 7 Pro can be priced cheaper than the Proton X70, I think that is going to disrupt Proton's market altogether. Moving on to styling, I think this is a nice middle ground between the daring, if a little bit controversial Omoda 5 and the larger, if slightly boring Tiggo 8 Pro. It has the same flashy diamond-studded grille pattern like on the Omoda 5, but here it's framed up in a more traditional fashion. But at the same time, it is also styled to be sharper and sportier than the Tiggo 8. I especially like the slightly darker smoked chrome trim around the grille, although the bits that go into the headlights are clearly taken from Mazda. And then the light blue highlights around the bumpers look quite interesting as well. One thing to note is that the LED DRLs are not within the headlamps themselves, but are mounted at the bottom of the front bumper, which looks a touch old school. But the sequential turn signals are bang up to date. Moving on to the wheels, this car has 18-inch dual-tone alloys, which is slightly smaller than the top-spec Proton X70's. Now that can be both a good and a bad thing. For one, at the back especially, it does look a little bit small compared to the tall body, but on the other hand, at least the tyre replacement cost will be a little bit cheaper. I've seen many owners of the X70 complain about the price of 19-inch tyres. But speaking of tyres, this car runs on Atlas A51s, which are not the best. At the back though, it has to be said that Tiggo 7 Pro looks far less interesting. Now I do like the multi-layered top spoiler with the blue highlights as well, and of course the full-width LED taillights. But beyond that, I think this big bare center portion does look a little bit plain. An easy fix for this, I think, if you were just to move the two badges down here further down and then the Chery script just under the taillights, it would look much better. But then again, I'm no car designer. I'm also not a fan of the two fake exhaust outlets. They may look real to you, but they're not actually connected to the real exhaust pipes. But overall though, it is still clear that this is very much a fresher, newer design compared to the Proton X70, which is coming up to 6 years old now. And that age difference is also apparent in terms of technology. This car does have the proximity automatic lock and unlock feature, just like the newer Proton X90, but not on the X70. So with this, I can just keep the key in my pocket, walk up to the car, and it will automatically unlock all by itself. Once you get used to this, pretty much every other car without it will feel super outdated. Once inside, this is like a crossbreed between the Tiggo 8 Pro, which is where the top half comes from, as well as the Omoda 5, which is this center console over here. Above anything else though, I think it is in the interior where the Proton X70's age shows the most clearly. This is the much more modern design. You've got two big screens up top with the center display supporting Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a big, massive advantage right there. Even in terms of quality, it holds up really well. You've got plenty of soft touch plastics up top and leather covering the center portion and even the edges of the center console. You even have double glazing for the front windows, which is super premium for this price range. But of course, there are a few things that I don't quite like. Primarily, this big fake carbon fiber trim that runs across the entire dashboard, and the use of parts that are very blatantly copied from Mercedes-Benz, including the push start button, all the window controls, and even the speaker grills. The speakers are actually from Sony, which is pretty decent by the way. At the back, the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro is pretty good as well. You get plenty of legroom and headroom. For your reference, I am 167 centimeters tall. Now, of course, this is no Honda CR-V, but it is at least as good as the Proton X70. You also have rear aircon vents down there, plus a USB port and a full panoramic sunroof up top. Counting against this car is the lack of a recline adjustment for the backrest and the use of full hard plastics back here. The boot is also slightly bigger than the Protons at 475 liters, and under the floor is a full-size spare tire with the same rims as on the outside. Lift up the bonnet and you may think for a second that this is an EV, but trust me, there is actually an engine underneath this. This, if you ask me, is a bit of an odd choice for an engine cover, but I guess it does look a bit neater. The engine itself is a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder petrol turbo, making 197 PS and 290 Newton meters of torque. That is more power than both the Proton's 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbo and the 1.8 litre 4-cylinder turbo. The transmission is similar to the Proton's, a 7-speed wet dual-clutch gearbox, but here it is supplied by one of the world's leading gearbox suppliers, Getrag. Again, just like the Proton, this car is front-wheel drive only, and you can get from 0 to 100 in just 8.3 seconds, which is pretty quick for a car of this size. Another aspect where the Chery holds a big advantage over the Proton is safety. For passive safety, this car now has 7 airbags, one more than the Proton. So the driver's seat now holds not 1 but 2 airbags, including the center bag that deploys between the front passengers. As for active safety, the X70 was one of the very first cars in Malaysia to offer adaptive cruise control at a reasonably affordable price. But again, that was 6 years ago. The game has moved on a long way since then. The Chery has AEB and ACC to match the Proton X70, but it also adds on a whole lot of other features for a full level 2 semi-autonomous driving system to match newer, more modern rivals. So there you go guys, the new Chery Tiggo 7 Pro, a like-for-like rival to the Proton X70. All in all, this is of a similar size but with a more powerful engine and obviously a more modern looking exterior and interior as well. But above all else, it will come down to the final price of this car. If Chery Malaysia can indeed price this lower than the X70, I think it's going to be phenomenal in terms of value. But over to you, how much do you think this car should be priced here in Malaysia? Do let me know in the comment section below. For now, thank you for watching everyone and stay safe.